Hi, and welcome to Post-Liturgical Knap, a podcast by Saints George and Alexandra Orthodox Christian Church in Fort Smith, Arkansas, featuring Father Alexis. If you'd like to learn more about our parish specifically, or Orthodox Christianity in general, please check the episode description box for some helpful links. Thanks for listening. Now here is Father Alexis.
When we talk about the asceticism of the parish life, certainly one of the things we're going to have to mention is, how do I fit into the life of the parish? Oftentimes people want to know, especially new people and converts, how do I participate in the life of the church? What can I do? And they might think to themselves, I don't really have any skills to offer. Other people come to the church with sometimes an almost preconceived notion. And some of them are men or young men that are having a zeal for the church and want to serve the church. What I think is important for us to realize is that there is room in the church for all of those things. And part of the asceticism of the parish life is finding a way to incorporate and integrate all of our people that God has placed in our parishes so that they are able to live the fullness of what God is calling them to do. So they need guidance, they need direction, but also as well, if someone is able and capable, they need something to do. And so we're not simply saying, hey, you're bored, let's give you something to do. But we are looking into the quality, the capability of the person, and we're honoring that, and we are kind of matching them with an activity and a calling. So on one aspect of it, we have people who say, well, what am I able to do? Perhaps I'm thinking here now of we have some young ladies that come in and say, well, I'm never going to be a priest, and I'm not going to be a reader or anything like that, subdeacon. So what can I do? And sometimes there's a real pushback against people doing things in the church because they feel like they're being stereotyped. So this is sometimes for women. If someone comes to me and says, Father, I'm a woman, I can't be a reader, I can't be a priest, I can't be a subdeacon, but what can I do to the church? If I say, well, why don't you learn to bake prosphora? Then the idea might be, well, what do you think I should bake? Because I'm a woman? Actually, why I think anybody should bake is because we need prosphora. So if you're looking for something to do in the church, those are some of the things you can do. For instance, cleaning the church. If somebody says, can I clean the church? And I say, well, yes, please clean the church. We do need people to clean the church. We need people to clean the parish hall. In those kind of instances, at the end of the day, it really isn't a matter of how old you are, whether you're male or female, but if you're wanting to do something for the church and participate in the life of the church, and that you want to undergo in that ascetical labor in the life of the church, these are the kind of things that we can offer to the church. It doesn't require great skill. On the other hand, sometimes people do have the aspiration to acquire a great skill. And here I'm thinking of somebody who wants to be a catechist, or wants to teach Sunday school, or wants to be, a lay delegate for when they go to the All-American Council, or, they might be looking to represent the parish and the diocese in some other capacity. These are all things that our church has encouraged in participation, but I think they also form an important part of looking at the asceticism of parish life and participating in the life of the church. Another excellent one is sitting on the parish council. There are qualifications for if you're eligible to sit on the parish council, and you have to be voted in, but it's something to aspire to. It's something to be open to. And, we all do have our unique talents and our skills, but at the same time, God does give us an opportunity either to increase them or, to be in a position sometimes we may not feel well or qualified for, but people would like us to be that in position and are willing to support us in that endeavor. All of that has to do and is caught up with that asceticism of parish life. One of the aspects of asceticism that we don't often think is that there's humility involved. An ascetical labor is not necessarily, I think it should go this way and I should do it and me, me, me. Really, the asceticism that we have in the church begins with, Lord, what do you want me to do? How do I live my life so that thy will be done? Show me, Lord, and send me. That's the beginning of our asceticism, and that struggle that we undergo is by listening to God and by doing what he says, being faithful. And so I think there are many things that are opportunities in our parish for us to be involved in, and they're, frankly, most of the time they're very, very easy to learn about. We just need to reach out. and to ask. And many parishes, there are sign-up lists, there are people that are talking, asking for help. And so those are the things that we can be involved in that help us participate in the ascetical life of the parish. Relatedly, our church is very orderly. It's not just arbitrary, it's not willy-nilly, but there's an order into the services, there's order to the parish life. And so one of the kind of clear indications that that's the case is, you have the priest, you have vestments, you have the iconostas, you have deacons, subdeacons, readers, bishops, all of it fitting in its place, all of them going in their place and doing what they're doing according to their stature. We have the choir singers, we have the servers and people like that, doorkeepers, ushers, all of those things, parish council members. And that contributes to the order of our church. I have many young men over the years that have come to me that have aspired to serve the church more specifically in either a tonsured or ordained capacity. Now, our church has made available several documents over the years that kind of help to prepare men, their hearts and their minds, to consider, as being a reader, being a subdeacon, being a deacon, or being a priest, or even being a monastic, men and women being monastics in the church. So, whenever somebody comes to me and asks me about this or inquires about this, I try and be consistent in my response. The main thing that we have to understand about service in the church, whether it is ordained ministry or it is, being tonsured to the minor orders, or if it's just sweeping the church, any ministry, any service that we give to the church, the main thing that we have to have underlying that offering is that it's not us doing a pet project, but rather it is us offering what God has asked us to offer. And sometimes we are tempted to turn that offering into a personalistic thing. Here I'm thinking of, and again, not to pick on anybody, but here I'm thinking of maybe like the choir. You have sometimes people that want to sing in the choir, and they're not always able to sing the notes properly, and they're not always the most reliable for choir practice, but they'll show up on Sunday and they want to sing in the choir. To a certain extent, that is a completely laudable endeavor, but we also have to recognize in our humility that if we are not up for the task of what it's required to undergo this service, if we're not willing to undergo what the Lord is asking us to do to be properly prepared or to have the skill to do that, then we need to have the humility to be open to doing something that we are capable of doing. It doesn't mean that if you have a struggle in your choir somewhere that you need to automatically kick people out or anything like that. But I think we have to understand that our service is not about us and our personalistic interpretation of it. Our service is about giving the church and giving to the church and offering to Christ. I've heard it said that you don't change the church changes you. And I think that's an important principle for us. If we come, when it comes to service, and we say, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and all those things, then this becomes that kind of idea where we're going to change the church the way that we think that it needs to be changed, versus the church changing us. And indeed, if we're opening our hearts to Christ, if we're opening our hearts to listen to the theology and the life of the church, we will be changed. We will encounter Christ in the various offerings that we have, and we'll be transformed by that. But we have to be open and have that humility. So when a young man comes to me and says, well, I think I want to be a priest, I don't discourage vocations, but I try to convey to them that, first of all, the life of ministry in the church is not an easy one. And it's not one that you can volunteer for and then set down later. The church doesn't need that. What the church needs is consistency. And so in any ministry that we do in the church, whether it's ordained or not, we do need that consistency. When it comes to something like reading, reading isn't just about having a cassock and having a stickar and, getting up there and reading the epistle. It's about service to the church. Our services are orderly, and so there are parts that a reader reads and that's appropriate for a reader to read. When a subdeacon is present at a liturgical service, there are certain things that are supposed to be what the subdeacon does. When a deacon serves, there are certain things that the deacon is supposed to do, certain prayers that he's supposed to read. And that's the normal course in life of our church. So our aim always has to be not only an aim of humility, but also to do what the church is asking us to do. Not our concept, but what the church is asking us to do. And I think that's one of the foundational aspects of us serving in the church, is to really say, what is Christ calling us to? What am I being called to? Not what I think I should do, but what Christ is asking me to do.